I want to show you an example of a very poor implementation of SSL in a mobile app. And coincidentally, I stumbled across this today when I was looking for examples to use in this course about how auth tokens were implemented. I thought these guys might do a good job of it. Instead, I found a pretty serious vulnerability. Now, I have also disclosed this vulnerability to the organization in question, and they'll have plenty of time to get it fixed up before this course goes live. But I don't want to lose the opportunity to show you just how badly SSL can go wrong in a fairly major app, and the users are none the wiser. Let me show you what I mean. So here we are with Fiddler open. My iPhone has the Fiddler root certificate installed on it, and Fiddler is proxying HTTPS traffic. I'm now going to open this app that you see to the right of the screen. This is GoCatch, and it's, quote, Australia's favourite taxi booking app. I can believe that. It's my favourite taxi booking app. I've been using this app for months and months, and like most consumers in most apps, I assumed that they had paid attention to security and gotten the basics of things like HTTPS right. I'm going to now open that app that you see on the right of your screen. Watch what happens. Here's something that we haven't seen to date in this course. Now the key here is this message at the top of the alert box. The remote server presented a certificate that did not validate. Now what does this mean? Well, think back to the earlier diagram in this module, where I talked about how Fiddler sits in the middle of the communication and effectively goes backwards and forwards to the back-end service before then proxying that traffic backwards and forwards with the client. Fiddler is doing its own certificate validation of the API that this app is talking to, and the certificate is not actually validating. Now we're going to look at this a couple of different ways, and I'll explain what's actually happening, but part of the message is given away in the alert window that we see here. Have a look at the issuer. It's the third line of the second paragraph, jason@gocatch.com. That doesn't sound like a certificate issuer that I know of. Clearly, something very odd is going on here. Let's see if we can make some more sense of this by opening up the address that we see here in the alert in a browser on our desktop. And that address is obviously an HTTPS address, and it's ws.gocatchapp.com. Let me go and grab a new Chrome window and bring it over. We can discard that. We don't need to proceed there. Back to the browser, https ws.gocatchapp.com. Let's see what happens. This doesn't look very positive. There's one thing about browsers on the desktop. These days, when they don't trust a certificate, they really let you know about it. But this in itself is an interesting juxtaposition to the mobile screen we just saw. That GoCatch app screen grab is what you see after it successfully loads and communicates over this channel. There's no indication in that app that there might be a certificate problem. Let's see what the issue is. We'll inspect the certificate, down to certificate information, and here's who it's issued by, GoCatch CA. Unusual. That doesn't sound like a CA I know of. When we go over to the issuer here, there's Jason again. So here's what's happened. The API for GoCatch is sitting on a domain that is serving up a self-signed certificate. Not only is it a self-signed certificate, but it's one that expired almost a year ago at the time I'm recording this. Now, letting a certificate expire is bad news, but it can happen sometimes, and when it happens, that's it. Your communication should be shut off. But clearly what this means, both by virtue of the fact that the certificate is expired and the fact that it was never valid anyway, not by any mainstream device the kind of device that the app is actually running on, it means that there is no validation check. So it's a double whammy. It's the farmer's direct situation where there was no validation, but at least they had a valid cert. They just never checked it was valid. In this case, it's a self-signed, invalid cert served to an app that never checks that the certificate is valid itself. This SSL implementation is entirely useless. At the time of recording, anybody using this app is effectively communicating over an insecure channel. Now clearly, transport layer security is important to these guys. That's why they have a certificate in the first place, even if it is a self-signed one. That's why they're making HTTPS requests. It's important enough that they've gone to that effort, but unfortunately, the effort has been all for nothing because a man in the middle could simply stick their own certificate in there and the app would happily continue sending and receiving data that was never intended to be interpreted by a man in the middle. Now again, I'm showing you this to try and demonstrate just how prevalent security risks are behind mobile apps. As I said, I've used this many times. I had no idea there was a vulnerability like this behind it, and I simply stumbled across it as I've stumbled across so many in the past. And if that doesn't put the risk of APIs behind rich clients into context, I don't know what does. And that is the best possible example I can give of just how prevalent security risks are behind rich client apps.